Welcome to our show entitled Building a Peaceful Planet for All Beings, Youth Climate Movement, Torchbearers, Climate Now, and the Sunrise Movement, Part 2 of 4. In part 1 of our show, we had the pleasure of showcasing the outstanding work of Sarah Goody and her climate group, Climate Now. Today we are privileged to bring you one of the most talked about youth climate groups in the USA today, the Sunrise Movement. We will be hearing from two of its ardent supporters, Kate Craig and Remus Anani. Sunrise Movement was founded in 2015 by a small group of like-minded youth on the east coast of the USA who envisioned a revolutionary overhaul of the country's climate policies, matching the scale of our planet's climate emergency. Sunrise Movement does not have formal membership, but is estimated as of September 2019 to be comprised of about 80,000 active supporters, most of them in their teens or 20s. The rallying point of the Sunrise Movement is the UN Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, IPCC's special report in 2018, which says that we now have only 10 years until 2030 to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% from 2010 levels to prevent a disastrous 2 degrees Celsius global temperature rise by 2100 relative to the pre-industrial era. Scientists also warn that if we reach 2 degrees Celsius, a chain of catastrophic climate tipping points could be triggered, leading to further warming and potentially an end to higher forms of life on Earth. Sunrise Movement's Kate Craig touched on the perilousness of the situation.
This is a turning point in history. This is a crucial thing that our species has never faced before. And yes, it's really, really scary. Sunrise kind of talks about like hope and despair, but when the Earth needs us, the planet needs us now. So whatever each of us can do to get into that space, we have to have that courage. We all have to kind of step up because history demands it of us. Future generations demand it of us, and the planet and all the other species and plants and animals that live on this planet with us, they need our help too. So we have a responsibility greater than any other generation in history. So I think that is why we all, we have to meet that moment.
Sunrise Movement's activism is modeled after the civil rights movement of the 1900s, towards its main goal of avoiding a 2 degrees Celsius global temperature rise. Sunrise Movement employs many strategies. It mobilizes fellow young people to campaign for political candidates who would stand for bold, progressive policies. It presses candidates to refuse political contributions from the fossil fuel industry. It organizes protests and strikes to discourage companies from investing in fossil fuel industries.
Climate change is not a lie! We won't let our planet die! Climate change is not.
The Sunrise Movement gained nationwide recognition in November 2018 when it staged a sit-in protest. The protest received intense media attention. Sunrise Movement is one of the few climate groups in the country to offer a clear and concise list of governing principles, known as the Green New Deal. Since the 2018 US midterm Congress election, the Green New Deal has become Sunrise Movement's main focus. The Green New Deal has its historical roots in the New Deal, a series of economic reforms enacted by revered US President Franklin Roosevelt in the 1930s that helped to lift the country out of the Great Depression. The earliest reference to the modern Green New Deal can be traced to reporting on economic policies presented by labor and environmental activists from the 1970s, intending to steer the USA away from non-renewable energy. Since then, the Green New Deal has evolved into something much more ambitious and far-reaching. The basic principles have been the platform of most National Green Party policies for decades. It was also taken up in Britain in 2008 in the UN Environment Programme, or UNEP, as a global solution to climate change. The primary goal of the Sunrise Movement's Green New Deal is for the USA to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. In the meantime, to address the racial and economic disparity in the country. Let us now take a look at the Sunrise Movement's strategies for the country to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. The principles outlined in the Green New Deal call on government to aggressively regulate the two major greenhouse gas emitters, fossil fuel and animal livestock raising, to commit to 100% clean renewable energy, and facilitate a just transition into climate stabilizing industry employment for people whose jobs formerly contributed to global warming. It also includes healthcare for all, universal job guarantee, free college, and a focus on using public programs. It is this bold vision and idealism that attracts increasing numbers of young people in the USA, including Sunrise Movement member Remus Anani.
A central component of the Green New Deal is a just transition and the recognition that no matter how much we want to change externally, if we don't look at the root of how we got here, and if we don't look at those instances and ask what it means to make real reparations and ask what it means to actually address the harms that have been done to those communities, knowing that it's something like 75% of the people that live within 25-mile radius of an oil refinery are people of color, black people. This is such an insidious and deep problem. And this means also for the people in the rural communities who are working in the coal mines, we need an answer for them of how they're gonna shift to clean energy jobs. So this is a very total operation. It takes getting into the streets, it takes the internal work of a personal transformation, and it takes all of us to come together to do it together. We're not alone in this.
Thanks to the hard work of activists like Remus and others from within the Sunrise Movement, the Green New Deal has gone from a little-known political ideal to being endorsed by 15 US senators and 97 House representatives in some form. In February 2019, a 14-page Green New Deal resolution, which had a fossil fuel-free economy as the leading focus, was presented to the US Congress by Sunrise Movement allies, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. The resolution was non-binding, meaning that if approved by Congress, separate legislation would still need to be introduced for the resolution's goals to become a reality. To the disappointment of Green New Deal supporters, the resolution was voted down by the Senate before it had a chance to be debated. For the Sunrise Movement and allies, this is by no means the end of the road for the Green New Deal. In fact, they've redoubled their efforts to make it a reality. Some of their efforts have paid off. For instance, Sunrise Movement and other local activist groups helped elect progressive politicians to the New York State Legislature, which passed the wide-reaching Climate and Communities Protection Act in 2019. On a national scale, the Sunrise Movement is doing everything it can to put a new generation of progressive officials in office. From a scientific standpoint, some experts have already made the case for climate action, focusing squarely on livestock instead of fossil fuels for climate crisis solutions at this late stage. Dr. Kirk R. Smith, Professor of Global Environmental Health of the University of California, Berkeley, made this point in the groundbreaking environmental documentary mentioned by Sarah Goody, Cowspiracy, The Sustainability Secret.
If you reduce the amount of methane emissions, the level in the atmosphere goes down fairly quickly and within decades, as opposed to CO2. If you reduce the emissions to the atmosphere, you don't really see a signal in the atmosphere for 100 years or so.
Underlying Dr. Smith's reasoning is the fact that reducing fossil fuel to mitigate CO2 emission is like turning around a big heavy ship. It involves restructuring an entire economy and will take a long time before effects are noticeable. Because of the urgency of the situation, we need to start with actions that will take immediate effect to maintain a functional climate and allow for these longer-term efforts to then come into play. To learn more about Sunrise Movement, please visit sunrisemovement.org. Supreme Master Ching gratefully presents the Shining World Courage and Compassion Award to Sunrise Movement, with high praises and heartfelt appreciation for your precious vision and noble endeavor on behalf of all beings. May your movement and all involved enjoy continued great success in heaven's forever grace. Supreme Master Ching is deeply grateful to the beloved God for all the financial help, comfort and support to the afflicted and needy and/or any good cause over the years, as a humble vessel for His compassion and love towards His precious children. Magnanimous viewers, we appreciate your supportive company today. Please tune in again next week on Tuesday, July 28th, 2020, for part 3 of our show, where we will have more for you about the Green New Deal